Hello everybody, and welcome. Here we are, the jewel in the crown of the ultimate virtual calendar, and you'll hear me saying that more than once today. It's the Monaco Grand Prix, and as I say every week, but particularly true this time around, I couldn't be more excited to bring this to you. Of all the races in the UV calendar, this is the one the drivers want to see themselves on the top step of. Only 2 drivers have ever won the Monaco Grand Prix in its 3-season featured in the competition. Kubo twice in season 2 in his 3rd ever race as a driver, and Jake and Kubo also winning in season 4, and Jake winning in season 3. Both of those drivers drive for Neon Sunset Racing this season. It should be a battle of the teammates, but interestingly enough, we've got some light rain announced to be on its way. Will any drivers stay out and brave the current conditions? It definitely doesn't look so. Will that first lap be locked in as the times for the qualifying session? Because if so, we could see some huge upsets up and down the grid, as that first lap time is basically an out lap, a bank lap. It's what you're sort of setting your parameters with. It's not really meaning much. Now this is interesting. We're going to have the track drying out. The question being, will drivers have the time to get a final run in on the softies? Imagine so, even if they pit next lap rather than this lap. But we'll see if anybody does decide to pit this lap. It will be the wet runners most likely who'll file into the pit lane, people who just thought the standing water needed to be cleared as quickly as possible. While we're just waiting for people to come in off the wet weather tyres, we'll run you through the upgrades. It was a big triple header week for upgrades, purely for scheduling reasons, but some big winners out of that, namely BFX moving themselves up 1.2 index score. But let's see if they can move themselves up the standings here. You can see in the overall column on the right hand side, they're right behind Thunder X, but in points they're 6 points adrift. Can Thunder X put themselves further ahead? Will BFX strike back? We'll see once qualifying results come around, come the end of the session here. All the drivers now will merge into the pit lane. Surely, yes, they all will come in, and they should come out just in time to set one final flying lap. You can't really get much lap time coming out of the pit lane, but let's see if drivers can come around and set a really blisteringly quick lap at the end of the session. The track's been a bit dampened. Can anyone improve upon their initial times? Jeruni does. He goes to provisional pole position. Bluebell Boy will beat him, as will Jake. I've got completely the wrong end of the grid here. As will Jake come across the line to top that as well. But Bluebell sits on provisional pole. Kola Stvorza taking their first ever win as a team last race. First ever podium as a team last race. They might be on for their first pole position unless Jeru could do something about it here. He has one final lap. We'll follow the drivers as they come across the line. Jeru improves, but it's only second. Grandy goes fastest. Bluebell goes top. Jake beats him to it. Jake looks like he might just start on pole position unless drivers further down the order have anything to say. His teammate Kubo only tying for 5th as it stands, and it looks like come the end of the session, Jake will start from pole position. Bluebell will start alongside him on the front row. We've got a purple and black theme going on up at the top. Grandy will start in 3rd. Jeruni will start 4th. He's looking for redemption today for his Season 2 antics, where a late call staying out during wet conditions is what cost him the victory versus Kubo and the retired Spooder. His Season 2 rival, Kubo, starts right behind him in 5th. Sobel will start 6th. Amfer, who got 6th place and driver of the day, no tokens last race, starts 7th, ahead of his near namesake Apple Amazing in 8th. Not That Guy will start 9th, and Urist in 10th position for Team Velocity. Vladinator, last race only P5 with 3 tokens for him, will start 11th place. Rito at a track historically weak for himself and BFX, although doing well last season with that massive fight with Kubo up top, starts 12th and pit crew behind. Fox, then Andres Menica with a double Dutch 8th row. Kado ahead of Kamikaze, his old teammate Andrin, and Anti will start 19th and 20th. Really interesting to see that the token spends are as follows. Sobel is spending 1 token, so he'll start from 6th on the grid. Jake and Kubo spending 3 each. They start from 1st and 5th. Kubo would have liked to be a little bit higher up, but couldn't get the run in when it really mattered right at the end of the session. Grandy spends 3 tokens, starts from 3rd. Apple Amazing spends 2 tokens, will start down in 8th position, but we've seen Dutchman win from down there before. Chiruni spends 3 tokens, he'll start on the 2nd row in 4th position. Vladinator spends 3 tokens, he'll start outside the top 10, I believe, in 11th place. Not a great starting position for him, but as seen last season, drivers can come through the grid very quickly if they slap on a set of softs at the beginning and make the use of their token spend. Abva, in a very surprisingly quick Fox car, starts 7th, and Bluebell, perhaps a return to points for him today, a first podium maybe on the cards since Interlagos Season 3, will start in 2nd place on the front row. Look at the drivers' standings. Grandy leads the way after a P1 and P10. Kamikaze right behind our race winner last time out, Abva, with 2 top 6 finishes, including the podium in Adelaide, with the most well-rounded performances so far, you got to say. 3rd in the standings, Sobel double points for him this season as well. Anti right behind Andres also with the podium last race, and then we have all the non-podium sitters right down to Kubo in 15th, 4 points only for him, but back-to-back point scores. Pit crew the same, 8th and 8th, 9th and 9th for them. In the constructors standings, Thunder X leads by 6 points, BFX 1 ahead of Superfast Racing, 2 ahead of Fuerza themselves, 2 ahead of Velocity, 1 ahead of Fox, so massively tight fight. 6 points separate 2nd down to 6th at the moment. Colas Forza, Porsche and Neon Sunset closer together. Flying V Racing yet to score points, Giruni looking to change that. Suicide last season scored Pappy Pops his first points of the season here in Monaco, and looking at the overalls, Thunder X has the fastest car, 3 speed, putting them ahead of most of the competition, including BFX, who do have a slightly better Excel stat, much better turbo, but lack in that speed department. 3.9 index only for them. Then we've got a pretty reasonably solid Fox car at 3.2 right behind Porsche, who are 3rd fastest at 3.4, then a very tight pack 3.0 and 2.9 for Velocity, FVR and Neon Sunset, and then just behind that KTV, SFR and Fuerza Roca with the 3 slowest cars. That is all for now. Let's get straight into the Monaco Grand Prix. Here we go then, 60 laps ahead of our drivers. We're underway here at the streets of the Principality. Jake gets a good start away from pole. Our entire top 5 has decided to start on the soft compound of tyre. Bluebell immediately looking for a move up into the hairpin section. Looks to get that move done. He'll make that move through Giruni and Jake battling down through the tunnel. Now Granny moved himself up into 2nd position as well. Kubo looking for the move to try and take 4th position. Sobel in 6th battling Abva, who does take that spot off him on the hards he's starting. Not that guy with a good qualifying position, might be going backwards on these hards versus Pit Crew, who does get through there. Kubo looking for the move on Grandy. This is the 3rd position. The Neon Sunsets now run 2-3. The team in their 3rd ever race. Kubo won Monaco in his 3rd ever race. Can success be replicated? Bluebell is really sticking hard there. He goes to the outside of the Nouvelle chicane. Can he get the move done into the back? Yes, he can. Files into the lead of the race ahead of Jake Brad. Once more, just as it looked like Neon Sunset would get through, they've fallen back, and Kubo's fallen all the way back behind Giruni. Might be under pressure from Abva soon. Jake very much in this pack with Grandy, and Jeru just moves ahead of them for the time being. Any big shocks? Top 6 pretty much as they were. Apple Amazing there as well. The big train of cars. Vladinator yet to really make a lot of progress from that 11th position. Pit Crew's dropped back a bit. Rito still hanging around in that 13th. There were Fox at Menica, Andrian, Eurus, Kamikaze, Kado, who's dropped down a bit, and Anti. Eurus also has dropped down, I believe, 7 positions from his grid slot. Not great form there. Grandy Giruni, Sobel's now gotten past Kuba, Abva's gotten past Kuba. It's looking pretty disastrous for the 2-time Monaco Grand Prix winner. Lucky to take his 3rd win today, but he's only running P7 as it stands. That's not going to be anywhere near good enough, and drivers at such a high overall token spend track can really get stuck down the order. Hernandi famously spending 4 tokens just to finish in 7th position back in Season 2 was really not the kind of thing that you'd expect to see at most tracks, but Monaco is so busy, so tight, so difficult to overtake in a lot of places. You really do get punished for not making the most of your chances. Grandy running well in 2nd position. His win in Adelaide made him the most victorious driver in all of Ultimate Virtual history. In fact, I believe that only 2 teams have won more races than Grandy. They are Velocity and BFX. Even the historic BAV team only ever took, I believe it was 7 victories, which would be equal to what Grandy has managed in his illustrious career. So yeah, interesting there. I believe Jake didn't take his first win until Monaco in Season 3 with that ultra-dominant car, scoring 5 race wins in that 12-race season, a record not looking to be beaten anytime soon, with a much closer grid, albeit fanning out a little bit more following that regulation change. It was very tight in the first couple of races, and now with more upgrades having been done, more opportunities up for grabs, cracks are starting to show, and the field starts to separate a little bit. Thunder X and BFX particularly looking really strong, but it's actually the team with statistically one of the worst cars on the grid, Carlos Sforza, who are leading here in Monaco. The soft runners will be peeling into the pit lane though soon, I have no doubt. Girouni battling with Sobel, who's doing very well in a very fast BFX car. Jake is in to the pit lane. Bluebell also in. Girouni gets blocked off by Vladinator. That's not going to help his campaign for those top spots. Will he get passed by pit crew coming in into Saint-Devant? Not quite, as they head up the hill. Beaurivage, Massenet. I forgot the name of these corners. Oh, they've got Neon Sunset cars battling side by side on the exit of the hairpin as you come down the hill towards, I believe it's Portier. Kubo up the inside of his teammates. Surely team orders dictate the soft runner, the soft shod Kubo pole goes through, but he's actually on very worn tyres, Jake on fresh hard, so it's a really difficult call to make around the long straights of Monaco, particularly from the final corner to the first corner, and then the first corner all the way up the hill to the Casino Square section. Jake keeping 4th place for the time being, up amazing on much more worn hard compound tyres, holding his own. Sobel just gets past for the lead of the race by Bluebell Boy, who was, of course, who is his junior team sort of relation, but of course the team owner as well on that BFX outfit, the man who decided to replace himself with that man, essentially. At the end of Season 2, Bluebell ended his BFX career on a high point, taking 2nd in the World Drivers' Championship, winning the Brazilian Grand Prix tokenless, of course, as that race always is, and replacing himself with the ever-impressive Phoenix Motorsports driver. Despite the team's relegation, Bluebell, who currently holds the fastest lap, saw straight through that terrible car and saw the amazing performances put in by Sobel, and decided to keep him in the league. His teammate G4, who did grab a front row in Interlagos, again tokenless, not so lucky. He's now, if anybody is a big fan of Journeyman Virtual, you can find him slumming it down in the 3rd tier of virtual racing. Just as good, just as high quality racing you'll find down there as anywhere else on the pyramid, so definitely worth a watch. And Grandy definitely looking for the inside line up into Saint-Devant, makes his way past Sobel, as does Jake. Those hards really starting to go off for the old Dutchman, and Jake, who had good experience battling with him, I believe it was in Brest in Season 3, as Jake pursued after that first win, and Sobel prevented that from happening by taking victory there, the final time we ever ran at the Belarusian track. Yeah, goes into the pit lane now, so Jake won't have to deal with his issues anymore. Vlad's done really well. He's pitted for softs already, and he's currently running in 4th position, as everyone else has pitted so far, apart from Apley, who's really extending out these tyres, and Not That Guy as well, running a very respectable to 12th place, yet to take his first points in Ultimate Virtual, but right around the corner, I'm certain, for the Italian-Dutch racer. Bluebell continues to lead, and this is the wonderful thing about Monaco. So worth listening to the commentary, if I do say so myself, because this track, this place within Ultimate Virtual just oozes history, passion, and a little bit of corruption, but generally really, really good stuff. So it's really good to see. You get the best drivers on display, you get the best teams, the best results, and definitely some of the most famous races in the history of the competition. Last season, with the amazing compatriot battle between the Polish drivers. The season before, of course, Jake taking his first ever win for BAV, and season before that, of course, Season 2 Monaco, one of the all-time great races, worth a watch if you haven't seen it already. Kubo, the winner that day, looking for the win here, but a quarter way through the race nearly, and he's still not looking any closer to the top step of the podium, as he has to lap his old teammate Juris Jaruni, though, are having similar difficulties with that. Vladinator and Sobel are right in behind to pick up any scraps, and Adver once again running pretty well. He's in 8th place. If we pull up the token spends just for a second here, you can see Sobel spending 1, he's doing well on that. Jake and Kubo both spending 3. I'd normally advise people not to spend with both drivers at the same track, but they seem to know what they're doing. Grandy spending 3 tokens as well, up in 2nd place at the moment. Apple Amazing spending 2 tokens, down in 9th, but he has only just pitted off a very long hard start stint, so we should see him go a while longer on this next hard set of tyres. Jaruni 3 tokens up in 4th place, Vlad 3 tokens, currently running in 8th. Adver 2 tokens this time, scored 8 points for no tokens last time around, so a fantastic effort from him. But he is running in 6th, we're on board with him at the moment. And then Bluebell Boy, our race leader, spending 3 tokens as well, looking for a return to the podium, return to the points. Remember, of course, he got points in 9 consecutive races from Season 3, Round 4 to Season 3 finale in Interlagos. He did really well with that and got some good podiums along the way, including that P2 from P15 on the grid in Interlagos, in the reverse grid, the only ever reverse championship grid race in Ultimate Virtual. Now, looking at the battles, Kubo chasing down Vlad. He's got Apley pretty close behind as well. Vlad himself not too far off Adver, his compatriot, but it should be pretty easy doings for Kubo. He does have a faster car by quite a long way. That SFR definitely down there as one of the slowest. If you look at the overall ThunderX and BFX, top 2 teams in the championship, top 2 in terms of index as well. Looking right down the order, SFR only 0.2 ahead of Fuerza, who do actually have a speed advantage, one of only 4 teams on the grid to have that 3rd speed level as it stands, but no acceleration and no turbo, of course, might really be hurting them, as well as a generally poor grip stat. But I mean, we can see here KTV look to be the 3rd weakest team, but they're doing really nicely. That 4 grip, I think, is really what's working out for them here. So the other team's high grip, of course, ThunderX, BFX, but also Porsche and Neon Sunset. Look out for great performances from those teams as Kubo looks to close ever closer to Vladinator over 6th position. Still hasn't gotten that move done. It is the difficulty of Monaco. You will find yourself waiting in a bit of a queue for quite a while. And this is racing on now base Monaco with the beta update today. Great to see this track finally getting its place that it deserves in the standard edition of the game. No mod being used here for the track at least, but Jaruni looking to change his tyres, modify the way he's driving at the moment, and putting on some fresh medium compound tyres here on lap 20 of 60 as we hit a 3rd race distance and emerge in 7th place ahead of Apple Amazing. This is the great thing about Monaco. So many drivers spend so many tokens that you just see these amazing battles, these amazing races up and down the top 10. Speaking of, we haven't looked at the lead for a while. Grandy comes into the pit lane. It looks like that's a Bluebell undercut. Slight difference in strategy. He's definitely been on those mediums for a few laps now. Rito, just as he was last race, looking to cause chaos from a lap down if he possibly can. Jake pitted at a very similar time to Bluebell, it looks like, maybe a little bit more recently in fact, because he is on those soft compound tyres and they do have slightly less wear. Grandy has pitted later. He's going to be looking to dive through, take his 8th win in an incredible stat revealed earlier. So in the last 2 seasons, 24 races essentially, so since Monaco season 3, BFX have won just 1 race. Teams that have won more include Fuerza Roja, Flying V Racing, and then all the teams such as the big guys, Team Velocity, Thunder X have had a huge amount of success with Grandy. 5 wins just pretty much in the last, it would be 20 races or so, because he got a really good spell of wins, including back-to-back last season, one of only 5 or 6 drivers to ever do that in the sport, when he took wins at both Barcelona and of course Mugello, with that all-important Rito DNF blowing the championship wide open. Bluebell continues to lead. Grandy has gone past Jake and looks to set his eyes on the Fijian, leading out in front, looking for Kolos Tvorza's 2nd ever podium. Back-to-back for them would put them in very good stead in the championship, and that car just seems to be working at the moment, despite on paper definitely being one of the slowest, but Grandi really closing in. He's on much fresher tyres than on lap 25 as he goes up the hill through Beau Rivage and Massenet into Casino Square, into the right-hand Mirabeau, into the Lowe's hairpin, and then taking the corner out to Portier into the tunnel section. Grandi, the Finn, leads, looking for his 8th career victory, looking to maintain his lead in the championship. He had such a good opportunity to win it last season. It didn't materialise because of this man's team, Rito, the winning machine, despite not having won a race in the last 30 before he took an all-important victory in Monza that he had to win that race, with Grandi not scoring in order to win the championship. That's exactly what transpired. But he's just so consistent, so high up, so often, and just scores points like he's having fun with it. Bluebell, I'm sure, will be so pleased to see himself back on the track, so pleased that he got his junior team, previously BFZ, Bluebell Boy Force Z promoted, or BFZ, if you're like that. Be so pleased to have gotten them promoted and feel like he's really earned a seat in the league. Of course, a lot of owner drivers from season 1, stuck around in their own seats, and that's all very well and good, but that's not earned by real, and there's no slight against any of these. I think some of the best teams, SFR, definitely one of the staples of the grid, have a double owner driver pairing. That's very iconic, but to really earn your place in the league, I think, is amazing. So anybody who's come up through CV or even JV before that, but really particularly Bluebell winning promotion for its own team and giving himself a seat on that team in the higher league, that is something that really team owners should be aspiring to. I think that's an amazing achievement. He's getting stuck in a little bit of traffic here. It's Hetmanica and Fox still not through them as they come into the first part of Piscine. Has to take a bit of a compromised line into the Raskas corner, and Het's still blocking him on the exit. That is definitely helping Grandi's overcut, but as Grandi gets a little bit of difficulty himself, bit of grief there from the end of season 3 Fuerza Roja lineup as Kamikaze just holds up Caddo. They're fighting over 17th and 18th position at the moment, just a lap down. We'll have a flick through the top section of the grid. Grandi is yet to pit for a 3rd time as he heads on to very nearly complete half race distance. Bluebell is slowly but surely closing that gap as Eurus bonks the pit wall. Jake is running in a very respectable 3rd, but him and Jaruni not really looked in the contention for the fight for the win so far. Sobel running in 5th place, just lapping his teammate. Very nicely done there. Rito running in 13th, a lap down, and Kubo in 6th position at the moment will be really gutted, especially with how the upgrades went. If we pull that up just for a second, because Neon Sunset, they got a few turbos, to be fair, and they got a grip upgrade, but they just missed the pizzazz of a speed or a really high number of chassis stats to be able to put themselves in really good stead. And BFX moving up 1.2 to Neon Sunset only moving up at 0.5 really must hurt if you look especially at the team overview, to see themselves fall really quite a long way off, to be totally honest. 1.0 and 1.1 off the top 2 teams respectively. That's got to hurt. Grandi, meanwhile, though, came into the pit lane. He came out right behind Bluebell. He is on the hard, so he can really bide his time if he needs to. No rush to get the overtake done. He can just wait for those mediums of Bluebell Boy to die and hope for that overcut to really transpire. He's very close now to an overtake, though, but don't count Jake out of this because he looks to just be wriggling his way back into it. Sobel doing really impressively well on the single token, but you have to back Grandi here. You just have to, and as he goes up the main straight, it's not even a competition there. Boosts his way past, and Bluebell, I don't think, has the grip to fight him despite the supposed straight line speed advantage of a medium compound of tyre. 60 laps is a long race here in Monaco. It takes about half an hour, sometimes just over that, which is, 5 minutes, 6 minutes longer than your run-of-the-mill Ultimate Virtual Race, but that's because it's such a special event. We want to see more on-track action. We want to see more battling going on in a very arduous track that in real life has a reduced distance because of its low speeds around its tight, tricky walled corners. In Ultimate Virtual, no such issue for us. We are very happy to run for as long as these drivers can continue to drive around their little cars. Sober comes into the pit lane. He won't lose much of a position out there. No, he's got a really nice gap back to Vlad, Abva, and now Kubo, who moves himself up into 7th place on the soft compound tyre. He will be really quite upset with this because it doesn't look like it will be a win for him. It doesn't look like it will be a win for Neon Sunset Racing. I mean, as fierce as a rivalry with a teammate can be, just as we saw in Season 3 with the British Aerial Virtual, the predecessors of this team, you want your teammate to win, especially with Jake already being in the Monaco Winners Club. It would be poetic for Jake to tie level for the all-time win record here with his teammate, 2 for each of them. It doesn't look like that'll happen today, barring a really strong performance from Jake, but you can't count him out just yet. It just looks like Grandy is having an absolute stormer of a race, playing the strategy card so nicely and just patient, doing something different than the others so as to not get bogged down in whatever else they're doing. But Bluebell is just closing that gap, little chunks at a time. Jake definitely looking for that podium position. He's on a identical tyre and age to Bluebell at the moment, or identical tyre both in terms of compound and age. Sobel runs in 4th, 1 token for 12 points would be an incredible haul for the BFX driver. That just shows the dominance of their car. At the minute Bluebell comes into the pit lane, he won't lose any track position. It looks like the fights have really separated out, especially Grandy, who still has a while left to go on this hard compound tyre, holds a 9-second lead over Jake that will just grow. Really just grow as Jake comes into the pit lane. I think he'll be leading by over 10 seconds if and when Jake pits this lap, which I really think he will, and he does. And as you see Bluebell Boy coming through there, the 1 lap undercut looks to be working very much in his advantage, but 11.3 seconds Grandy leads by. It's unbelievable that this man has not been rewarded with his efforts with either a Drivers' or Constructors' Championship just yet, because he is doing an outstanding job. So is his teammate, you have to say. Pit crew looking on, despite not having spent any tokens so far this season, looking for his 3rd point score of the season. This would take him, I believe, to 9 points in total. Doesn't look to be much more than that, as he's 15 seconds off P9 at Monaco. Not gutted with that performance, I don't think, because he's not spending any tokens, but Vlad being a lap down on the race leader now, he is spending quite a few tokens. We'll pop up that as a reminder to you all. Vlad spending 3 tokens down in 9th place, the car not working anywhere nearly as well as the apparently worse Kolos Dvorza currently is. Jaruni spending 3 tokens, running only in 5th, Kuba spending 3, running only in 6th, Alpha spending 2, running in 7th, Apple Amazing spending 2, running in 8th, and Vlad will be really upset, just 2 points for his 3 tokens as things stand. He does have a couple of positions for the taking ahead of him. Abva right up the road, and Apple Amazing and Kubo all there actually. Yeah, Kubo's just coming to the pit lane. Kubo now down in 9th position, so P6 very much still up for grabs for any of these drivers, but whoever comes out at the bottom of this pile in the fight between from 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th will be thoroughly disappointed with their race, and as they should be, to be totally honest. Both good cars, the Porsche and the Fox car. The Neon Sunset a little step behind, and then further back, of course, the super fast racing car. Grandy will come into the pit lane now, and he'll keep the lead because it's only really a 7-second stop here, and he had a gap of about 11.2, so he does come out with a 4.2 gap. So he will very much be enjoying that. It's only looking like rain as the only thing that could shake this man's world. And even then, Bluebell and Jake's just starting to skid around on those older medium compound tyres. They need a really good run here, but it's not impossible. And this is the thing we see about Monaco. Sometimes you do get that bit of magic. Sometimes, whether it's the leader just being backed up a little bit or just a sudden burst of pace from 2nd place, you do get this gap inexplicably closing. And Bluebell is on the softer compound tyre. He has cut down the gap to just 2.8 seconds. Will it continue shrinking? 1.7 as Kuba comes as Bluebell comes through the hairpin, and it's really not that much further back for Jake. A bit of rain is what they need on their side, otherwise Grandy's hards will be absolutely flying to the end. You wonder, I think he would have to pit again for one final soft stint. It would be a stretch, take these hards 18 laps or so to the end of the race. The gap does start to grow again. We'll focus on the other little battles. Shurini looking like he wants to take fourth, but Sobel will come through and snatch it right off him for the moment. Will they be losing any positions to those behind? It doesn't look like that at the minute. Kubo and Co on a slightly older tyre there. Not quite in that pack with Jeru, but definitely potential to catch up, as does Applemazy to catch up with Kubo, as does Abva to catch up with Vlad. Sorry, with Apley, as does Vlad to catch up with Abva. So everyone's separated by about 2 seconds before you get into the really hearty gaps of Jeru. Now obviously a pit stop fewer than Sobel, but Sobel still Sobel's still looking good on those mediums. Should take them a little bit longer. It's very much a sort of alternate strategy rather than same strategy, overcut, undercut. So it's not exactly directly easy to compare. Grandy has passed the 3/4 mark in this race around the time where we'd normally had probably a couple laps left. Monaco does go that extra stint longer. There is more time for unpredictability, more time for chaos, and definitely potential for a bit of soggy weather. But it's 9 seconds the gap now. Bluebell has pitted early in that stint. He is going to be looking to absolutely fly on some soft compound tyres as fast as he possibly can. This is both the attempt at beating his current fastest lap, which I believe you can do from out of the pit lane. Maybe not, I don't quite remember if that's faster, but definitely looking to cut in enough on Grandy's margin that Bluebell can that he'll be able to do it, because Grandy's hards, they'll go for a while longer. He'll be fine for a bit. He might, as we come towards the end of the race, it's looking a bit precarious on strategy what point he'll pit. I'm sure he'll go for a final soft stint, but if Bluebell can use that soft, he won't really be able to though. Look at this fight for second place. It's Bluebell versus Jake Brad, two drivers very prominent in and around the podium in Season 3. Jake with by far the fastest car, and Bluebell in that team velocity machine, just looking to pick up the points and podiums if and when he could. But he'll be disappointed. He's just not at the pace on that soft stint. You can really expect that. Grandy with the fastest car. Bluebell would be wishing right now that he's in his sister car, because that would have very much so the beans to be able to catch up with the Thunder X. The Neon Sunset is not a half bad machine. It's dropped back relative to the field a little bit, which team principal Kubo said he's quite upset about. Jake goes on and sets the fastest lap of the race. It's now 8.6 seconds, the gap between Jake and Grandy. Grandy could pretty easily cover off with the pit stop here. The risk is then, of course, a bit of rain comes to shower. Jake might have been held up just a little bit there, because he's definitely lost a second or maybe even two. Bluebell a second behind. This is very much the fight now for fourth. It's Sobel versus Jerini. Jerini takes a really deep line into the Nouvelle chicane, but does just about get the car stopped, doesn't scamper across the chicane, does get to keep the position fair and square. Sobel into the pit lane now. It's pretty much a reversal of previously, and he's going to be looking to get a really sweet undercut on those softs, but is he going to take those to the end? 11 laps is quite a way to push those tyres. It's possible, it's just difficult. Meanwhile, Kubo in 5th position at the moment, and it actually looks like, interestingly enough, well, the race leader has done a fair bit of lapping. I mean, that's pretty incredible. I think we only have maybe I think Kubo has unlapped himself. No, I don't quite know, to be honest. I think it's not a case that he's been fully lapped, perhaps, but rather is close to being so, and that's why you can see definite bit there. Where is Grandy on track? Oh no, okay. Definitely potential for people having been lapped. Sobel nearly lapped. Kubo, yeah, you can see Grandy there. So Kubo in 6th position, about to be lapped as it stands. Jake really nicely cutting into Grandy's advantage. Clouds are coming. This could set up a thriller of a finish if Grandy does have to pit. Is Jake slowing up? I think he is. He's just starting to lose a bit of grip on those tyres, but it's so fickle. Okay, Grandy has come in. He's come in a bit earlier than we thought he would, in fact. Where can Jake end up here? He's coming down the maiden straight at the moment. Grandy just up the hill and avoids him by another 3 or so seconds. It's a little bit tighter than it was last time, but he needs rain right now to have any real chance at Grandy here, because Grandy is already working his way through the very, very tight hairpin section out into the tunnel and gains a second and a half by the time he gets out there. This is looking so surefire for the Finnish driver. I don't think there's much dispute about it at the moment. 4.5 seconds, that gap should only grow. Jake's fight now has to be focused on the P2 battle. Bluebell in quite late indeed. Might be looking for an undercut on Jake. That's definitely a possibility here. Comes out of the pit on fresh soft compound tyres. This is pretty much the latest I would have left that to pit, lap 53, giving you a nice 7-lap stint to the end. He's definitely within the pit window of Jake, and Jake should be coming in. He might not though. It has to be now or never, and it is now. We'll follow along with Bluebell. You can see Jake in his pit box there as Bluebell comes down the swimming pool chicane, passes him on one way, needs to pass him back up the other though into turn 1. They're so tight, and Jake does just about come out of the pit lane ahead of Bluebell. The overcut seemed to work to his advantage there, or just essentially keeping track position. This is their fight between the two of them now. Grandy's strategy has worked beautifully for him. The race lead is out of their hands as we have now just 5 laps left to run. But Jake versus Bluebell, a really tight fight. This is over second place. Kolos Sforza already with a podium this season. Neon Sunset not with a podium. Jake, a very impressive P7 in his first race, tokenless on his return to the competition. No points in Jeddah, looking for a podium here in Monaco to establish himself as still somewhat of a Mr. Monaco, despite a couple seasons since his last win. Bluebell has gotten that pass done. He's up into second place at the moment, and a whole lot of traffic around there as well. Grandy lapping at absolutely domineering pace. He has now lapped 6th place driver Kubo, who maybe just trying to take Grandy out to give Jake any real chance of a race win, but it's just not looking that way at the moment. The Fox cars, you can see they're running 8th and 11th, up a lap up on his teammate. Now Jake looking to close in on Bluebell further behind. Sobel still running really nicely, 4th place with 1 token. For comparison, back when BFX had the 6th fastest car at the season opener, it was 5th place with 2 tokens for Rito, so they'll be glad they haven't dumped too much in at the start of the season and have a more reasonable amount now that they have a very, very fast car. Kubo running in 6th, 7 seconds ahead of him, 11 behind him. It's pretty much locked in at this point, unless he does have to come into the pit lane, but he's been lapped by the race leader. He'd be looking at the coming into this, and especially before the triple upgrade period, he would have been looking to take that fight to Grandy. So to see him a lap down is really quite demotivating for the poor Pole. But 6th place, 3 tokens, it's not great, but it is points. It's actually only 2 more points than Jake took tokenless at the start of the season, but that was Neon Sunset with the 2nd best car. I believe they've dropped down to 4th, 5th, I think tied 5th, so not a wonderful position for them to be in. But Grandy, meanwhile, is on the final lap of the race. He looked to have somewhat of resistance in the first half of the race. Bluebell boy definitely outdriving what is not a very quick Kolos Tvorza car. Still looking very good for a 2nd podium for the team here. But all the spotlight is on Grandy. He already is the most winning ever Ultimate Virtual Driver. 7 wins for him. Make it 8 on the streets of the Principality. Grandy wins the Monaco Grand Prix and joins the prestigious list of drivers to have won the race in the league. Jake only now comes across the line for 2nd place, and it's 10.43 seconds the margin from the leader to 2nd. What an absolutely dominant performance from the Flying Finn. Back on the podium, Neon Sunset's first podium for the new constructor. Bluebell boy takes Kolos Tvorza's 2nd consecutive podium. Jaruni in the end looks to have taken a great result. Sobel on those softs did exactly what he did in Paul Ricard last season and just didn't pit. He really did take those softs for the 11 laps that is maximum recommended for them and threw away what looked to be such an easy P4. And it is Jaruni who took it in the end. Kubo, by gratuity from that, moves up to P5, which is definitely a more respectable result for him. We'll do a full results rundown right now, because Grandy has won the Monaco Grand Prix. Jake takes second place and the fastest lap for Compliment. Bluebell third, Girouni fourth, and Kuba promoted up to fifth with what essentially looked like a post-race, end of race penalty for Sobel. I mean, such a sink off. That's must be 15 seconds that he lost there at the end. We could check the lap times. But he would have been lapping so slowly on completely worn out tyres. Just a terrible strategy call in the end there. It's not a bad point tool at all. It's 19 points for Jake, it's 10 for Kubo, 29 for the team in total. Off 6 tokens, it's just under 5 per token. Not a terrible result. Sobel takes 6th place, still great, 8 points with 1 token, but it could have been 12, so he'll be kicking himself for that strategy call. Abva, 7th place, fewer points than last race, but a definitely more hotly contested race this time around. So with 2 tokens spent, 3 points per token, he'll be pretty pleased with that. Apple amazing, less pleased, only 8th place for him. And Porsche, Hetmanik had a pretty bad race last time around with only 7th place, spending 3 tokens, I think, or maybe it was just 2. But aptly replicating the sort of success or lack thereof with, I believe, only 2 points per token. Should be the exact same as what Het got last race. Vladinator will be really upset with that. Only 2 points, 3 tokens spent. Not a good result. He is the loser, essentially, of this season's Monaco Grand Prix. And Pit Crew, tokenless, will take double points and score points for the 3rd consecutive race for Thunder X, which is his highest string of consecutive point scores ever. Just outside the top 10 by, well, I say just, it was by about 18 seconds. It was Hetmanik, it was Fox, not that guy, and then Rito, Andries, Andrian, Kamikaze, Kado, Anti, and Eurus. The velocities performing particularly poorly at this track. That's all for the Monaco Grand Prix. Not quite the fight for the win that we've seen in a lot of Monaco Grand Prix in seasons gone by, but an entertaining one nonetheless, with some surprise results and another great performance for Cola Sforza and of course Thunder X. We'll see you very soon for the 4th round of the season, Le Castellet, as per usual. A great racetrack that is, another one added to the base game, and it should be a really entertaining race. Until then, bye bye.